Everhood is a very difficult experience to replicate, and that's putting it lightly. A chaotic existential rhythm game that presents its serious and heartfelt message in such a goofy way. Its strengths are where it catches you off guard, but its quality isn't reserved for those who play it blind. Everhood's characters were memorable and given enough space to shine, and its gameplay was fresh and varied. It was in no way a perfect game, but it hit some crazy highs and was obviously made with a lot of love and care. So, is Everhood 2 able to live up to the unique experience that was Everhood 1? To be honest, I didn't think it would. I think a sequel couldn't possibly have. The game is still good, but when compared to the one it follows, it just feels like a somehow more chaotic, busier version. I'll begin with Everhood 2's greatest weakness. In Everhood, every battle was a boss battle. Each one had unique music you would hear while facing against a character no more than a couple times, and while the quality of those tracks was varied, the best ones were all incredible standout parts of its soundtrack. While Everhood 2 for sure does have a few tracks that are able to meet its predecessor at these peaks, it unfortunately pads its runtime with repeated encounters of minor enemies, with much weaker music than any of the more important named characters. Previously, most of the battle music was a full track that you'd play through to its end, but here most of the battles go on forever. Many of them backed by much shorter and much less interesting music loops. The repeating enemies turn battles from a fun challenge into a chore, and with many of them there's very little sense that they need to happen. There are multiple segments where the game asks you to fight several enemies of the same or similar variety to progress to, I would call it, varying success. I would say I don't fully understand why the battles in the previous game didn't drag like this, but I do think it's just that they all felt like they had a reason to be there. Even though I really enjoyed it, there were some real issues with the first game. The story pacing was all over the place, which I could find a way to justify because of the subject matter of the story, and the overworld movement was clunky and unresponsive, and made sprinting and turning something I would fight my keyboard over. Unfortunately, neither of these things have been improved in Everhood 2. Everhood 2 does have an interesting story that gets held back by several moments of monotonous gameplay that exist only to slow your progress. I enjoyed going through the twists and turns the story takes, but I found it hit or miss on everything in between. The game is longer than the first, but it struggles in prioritizing its time growing its characters in a meaningful way. It suffers from spreading itself too thin, introducing too many things that it fails to utilize impactfully. I do really like most of the main side characters. This one's my favorite. I just wish all of them got more focus instead of expanding the cast over so many one-offs and less important side characters. All of the main supporting cast do get a chance to shine at one point or another, but I just couldn't help but feel like their moments would have been stronger if I'd been shown more growth or more of their history. To me, this game is weakest in the beginning, before anything is connected and before the world has become familiar. It stopped feeling worthwhile to continue when I didn't know why things were happening. I may have just not been in the mood for a game like this at the time, but I do think it took too long to put me in a position where I felt like progress was happening. The complaint I've heard the most about this game is its abrupt ending, and it does have an abrupt ending. But I will say it does feel like the game has said everything it had to say before the actual end of the game, and for me, I have to admit it was a slightly cathartic ending on a personal level. Everhood 2's strongest part is its middle, and it's certainly aiming to be an experience where the journey outweighs the destination. It's a chaotic, absurdist, and unique experience that tries not to ask you to take it too seriously, while presenting meaningful introspection as Everhood 1 did. In-game, it's a story about control and manipulation. You've gone from the dark and whimsical forest to the dark and whimsical back alleys of a city, where you are met with a cast of enjoyable characters and not a single one pure of heart or with good intentions. It's important to let go of the need to feel in control of the story. Like anyone new to a setting like this, you are about to get dragged into so many situations. Everhood 1's story held a lot of focus on letting go and the importance of change and ending. It was, after all, a story about death. Everhood 2, on the other hand, is a story about life, and reminds the player that an ending is not always a grand and satisfying climax. Some ties can and will inevitably be left undone in the end. The true nature of the main villain behind this game's story is clever yet admittedly disappointing. I think while Everhood 2 is presenting some meaningful discussion about the purpose of life and what you decide to make of it, it forgets in some moments to deliver on the creative gameplay aspect it was known for. There were so many ways this game could have ended that would have been potentially more satisfying, but it would have been superficial and at odds with the game's overall message. That's the cope, at least. Realistically, I think they just needed to spend more time with this pre-release. Everhood 2 is an art piece about the creation of art itself, and while it didn't land as cleanly as its smaller scale first installment, it's definitely worth a look. But not too closely if you're photosensitive like me. This game did give me a headache at one point. I don't know what rating I would give this game. There were parts I loved and parts I didn't. Some things I felt didn't live up to Everhood 1 and other things that I think worked better than before. I don't have an official score or rating to give Everhood 2, but I liked it. Less overall than the first game, but still enough to recommend it.